Book 4. Number 1. The sovereign power within, in its natural state, so confronts what comes to pass as always, to adapt itself readily to what is feasible and is presented to it. This is because it puts its affection upon no material of its own choice. Rather, it sets itself upon its objects with a reservation, and then makes the opposition, which encounters it, into material, for itself. It is like a fire, when it masters what falls into it, whereby a little taper would have been put out, but a bright fire very quickly appropriates, and devours what is heaped upon it, and leaps up higher out of those very obstacles. Number 2. Nothing that is undertaken is to be undertaken without a purpose, nor otherwise than according to a principle which makes the art of living perfect. Number 3. Men look for retreats for themselves, the country, the seashore, the hills, and you yourself, too, are peculiarly accustomed to feel the same want. Yet all this is very unlike a philosopher, when you may at any hour you please retreat into yourself. For nowhere does a man retreat into more quiet or more privacy than into his own mind, especially one who has within such things that he has only to look into and become at once in perfect ease. And by ease I mean nothing else but good behavior. Continually, therefore, grant yourself this retreat and repair yourself. But let them be brief and fundamental truths, which will suffice at once by their presence to wash away all sorrow, and to send you back without repugnance to the life to which you return. For what is it that shall move your repugnance? The wickedness of men? Recall the judgment that reasonable creatures have come into the world for the sake of one another. That patience is a part of justice, that men do wrong involuntarily, and how many at last, after enmity, suspicion, hatred, warfare, have been laid out on their deathbeds and come to dust. This should make you pause. But shall what is assigned from universal nature be repugnant to you? Revive the alternative, either providence or blind atoms, and the many proofs that the universe is a kind of commonwealth. Shall then the things of the flesh still have hold upon you? Reflect that the understanding, when once it takes control of itself and recognizes its own power, does not mingle with the vital spirit, be its current smooth or broken, and finally reflect upon all that you have heard and consented to about pain and pleasure. Well then, shall mere glory distract you? Look at the swiftness of the oblivion of all men, the gulf of endless time, behind and before, the hollowness of applause, the fickleness and folly of those who seem to speak well of you, and the narrow room in which it is confined. This should make you pause, for the entire earth is a point in space, and how small a corner thereof is this your dwelling place, and how few and how paltry those who will sing your praises here. Finally, therefore, remember your retreat into this little domain, which is yourself, and above all be not disturbed nor on the rack, but be free and look at things as a man, a human being, a citizen, a creature that must die. And among what is most ready to hand into which you will look, have these two. The one, that things do not take hold upon the mind, but stand without unmoved, and that disturbances come only from the judgment within. The second, that all that your eyes behold will change in a moment, and be no more, and of how many things you have already witnessed the changes. Think continually of that. The universe is change, life is opinion. Number 4. If mind is common to us all, then also the reason, whereby we are reasoning beings, is common. If this be so, then also the reason which enjoins what is to be done or left undone is common. If this be so, law also is common. If this be so, we are citizens. If this be so, we are partakers in one constitution. If this be so, the universe is a kind of commonwealth. For in what other common government can we say that the whole race of men partakes? And thence, from this common city, is derived our mind itself, our reason, and our sense of law, or from what else? For as the earthy is in me a portion from some earth, and the watery from a second element, and the vital spirit from some source, and the hot and fiery from yet another source of its own, For nothing comes from nothing, just as nothing returns to nothing. So therefore the mind also has come from some source. Number 5. Death is like birth, a mystery of nature, a coming together out of identical elements and a dissolution into the same. Looked at generally, this is not a thing of which man should be ashamed, for it is contrary neither to what is conformable to a reasonable creature, nor to the principle of his constitution. Number 6. These are natural and necessary results from creatures of this kind, and one who wants this to be otherwise wants the fig tree not to yield its acrid juice. And in general remember this, that within a very little while both he and you will be dead, and a little after, not even your name nor his will be left. Number 7. Get rid of the judgment. You are rid of the I am hurt. Get rid of the I am hurt. You are rid of the hurt itself. Number 8. What does not make a man worse than he was, neither makes his life worse than it was, nor hurts him without, or within. Number 9. It was a law of necessity that what is naturally beneficial should bring this about. Number 10. All that comes to pass with justice. You will find this to be so if you watch carefully. I do not mean only in accordance with the ordered series of events, but in accordance with justice, and as it were by someone who assigns what has respect to worth. Watch, therefore, as you have begun, and whatever you do, do it with this, with goodness in the specific sense in which the notion of the good man is conceived. Preserve this goodness in everything you do. Number 11. Don't regard things in the light in which he who does the wrong judges them, nor as he wishes you to judge them, but see them as in truth they are. Number 12. In these two ways you must always be prepared. The one, only to act as the principle of the royal and law-giving art prescribes for the benefit of mankind. The second, to change your purpose, if someone is there to correct and to guide you away from some fancy of yours. The guidance must, however, always be from a conviction of justice or common benefit ensuing, and what you prefer must be similar, not because it looked pleasant or popular. Number 13. You have reason? Yes, I have. Why not use it then? If this is doing its part, what else do you want? Number 14. You came into the world as a part. You will vanish in that which gave you birth, or rather you will be taken up into its generative reason by the process of change. Number 15. Many grains of incense upon the same altar, one falls first, another later, but difference there is none. Number 16. Within 10 days you will appear a god even to those to whom today you seem a beast or a baboon, if you return to your principles and your reverence of the word. Number 17. Don't live as though you were going to live a myriad years. Fate is hanging over your head. While you have life, while you may, become good. Number 18. How great a rest from labor he gains who does not look to what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only to what he himself is doing, in order that exactly this may be just and holy, or in accord with a good man's conduct. Do not look round at a black character, but run toward the goal, balanced, not throwing your body about. Number 19. The man in a flutter for after fame fails to picture to himself that each of those who remember him will himself also very shortly die, then again the man who succeeded him, until the whole remembrance is extinguished as it runs along a line of men who are kindled and then put out. And put the case that those who will remember never die, and the remembrance never dies. What is that to you? And I do not say that it is nothing to the dead. What is praise to the living, except perhaps for some practical purpose? For now you are putting off unseasonably the gift of nature, which does not depend on the testimony of someone else. Number 20. Everything in any way lovely is lovely of itself and terminates in itself, holding praise to be no part of itself. At all events, in no case does what is praised become better or worse. This I say also of what is commonly called lovely, for instance materials and works of art. And indeed, what is there lacking at all to that which is really lovely? No more than to law, no more than to truth, no more than to kindness or reverence of self. Which of these is lovely because it is praised, or corrupted because it is blamed? Does an emerald become worse than it was, if it be not praised? And what of gold, ivory, purple, a lute, a sword blade, a flower bud, a little plant? Number 21. You ask how, if souls continue to exist, the atmosphere has room for them from time eternal. But how does the ground have room for the bodies of those who for so long an age are buried in it? The answer is that, as on earth change and dissolution, after a continuance for so long, make room for other dead bodies, so in the atmosphere souls pass on, and continue for so long, and then change, and are poured out, and are kindled, being assumed into the generative principle of universal nature, and so provide room for those which succeed to their place. This would be the answer, presuming that souls do continue. But we must consider not only the multitude of bodies that are thus buried, but also the number of animals eaten every day by ourselves and the rest of the animal creation. How large a number are devoured, and in a manner of speaking buried in the bodies of those who feed upon them. And yet there is room to contain them because they are turned into blood, because they are changed into forms of air and heat. How shall we investigate the truth of this? By a distinction into the material and the causal. Number 22. Do not wander without a purpose, but in all your impulses render what is just, and in all your imaginations preserve what you apprehend. Number 23. Everything is fitting for me, my universe, which fits thy purpose. Nothing in thy good time is too early or too late for me. Everything is fruit for me, which thy seasons nature bear. From thee, in thee, to thee are all things. The poet sings, Dear city of Cecrops, and will you not say, Dear city of God? Number 24. Democritus has said, Do few things, if you would enjoy tranquility. May it not be better to do the necessary things and what the reason of a creature intended by nature to be social prescribes, and as that reason prescribes? For this brings not only the tranquility from doing right, but also from doing few things. For if one removes most of what we say and do as unnecessary, he will have more leisure and less interruption. Wherefore on each occasion he should remind himself, Is this not one of the necessary things? And he should remove not actions merely that are unnecessary, but imaginations also. For in this way, superfluous actions too will not follow in their train. Number 25. Make trial for yourself how the life of the good man too fares well, of the man pleased with what is assigned from universal nature, and contented by his own just action and kind disposition. Number 26. You have seen those things, look now at these. Do not trouble yourself, make yourself simple. Does a man do wrong? He does wrong to himself. Has some chance befallen you? It is well. From universal nature, from the beginning, all that befalls was determined for you, and the thread was spun. The sum of the matter is this. Life is short. The present must be turned to profit with reasonableness and right. Be sober without effort. Number 27. Either an ordered universe or a medley, heaped together mechanically, but still in order. Or can order subsist in you and disorder in the whole, and that too when all things are so distinguished and yet intermingled and sympathetic. Number 28. A black heart is an unmanly heart, a stubborn heart, resembling a beast of prey, a mere brute, or a child, foolish, crafty, ribald, mercenary, despotic. Number 29. If he is a foreigner in the universe who does not recognize the essence of the universe, no less is he a foreigner who does not recognize what comes to pass in it. A fugitive is he who runs away from the reasonable law of his city. A blind man, he who shuts the eye of the mind. A beggar, he who has need of another and has not all that is necessary for life in himself. A blame on the universe, he who rebels and separates himself from the reason of our common nature because he is displeased with what comes to pass. For nature who bore you brings these things also into being. A fragment cut off from the city, he who cuts off his own soul from the soul of reasonable creatures, which is one. Number 30. Here is a philosopher without a tunic, another without a book, another here half naked. I have no bread, he says, still I stand firm by the word. And I have nourishment from my lessons, and yet do not stand firm. Number 31. Love the art which you were taught, set up your rest in this. Pass through what is left of life as one who has committed all that is yours, with your whole heart, to the gods, and of men making yourself neither despot nor servant to any. Number 32. Call to mind by way of example the time of Vespasian. You will see everything the same. Men marrying, bringing up children, falling ill, dying, fighting, feasting, trading, farming, flattering, asserting themselves, suspecting, plotting, praying for another's death, murmuring at the present, lusting, heaping up riches, setting their heart on offices and thrones. And now that life of theirs is no more and nowhere. Again pass on to the time of Trajan, again everything the same. That life, too, is dead. In like manner contemplate and behold the rest of the records of times and whole nations, and see how many after their struggles fell in a little while, and were resolved into the elements. But most of all you must run over in mind those whom you yourself have known to be distracted in vain, neglecting to perform what was agreeable to their own constitution, to hold fast to this, and to be content with this. And here you are, bound to remember that the attention paid to each action has its own worth and proportion. Only so you will not be dejected if in smaller matters you are occupied no farther than was appropriate. Number 33. Words familiar in olden times are now archaisms. So also the names of those whose praises were hymned in bygone days are now in a sense archaisms. Camillus, Ciso, Volisus, Dentatus. A little after, Scipio too and Cato. Then also Augustus. Then also Hadrian and Antoninus. For all things quickly fade and turn to fable, and quickly, too, utter oblivion covers them like sand. And this I say of those who shone like stars to wonder at. The rest, as soon as the breath was out of their bodies, were unnoticed and unwept. And what, after all, is everlasting remembrance? Utter vanity. What then is that about which a man ought to spend his pains? This one thing: right understanding, neighborly behavior, speech, which would never lie, and a disposition welcoming all which comes to pass, as necessary, as familiar, as flowing from a source and fountain like itself. Number 34. With your whole will surrender yourself to Clotho to spin your fate into whatever web of things she will. Number 35. All is ephemeral, both what remembers and what is remembered. Number 36. Contemplate continually all things coming to pass by change, and accustom yourself to think that universal nature loves nothing so much as to change what is and to create new things in their likeness. For everything that is in a way the seed of what will come out of it, whereas you imagine seeds to be only those which are cast into the earth or into the womb, but that is very unscientific. Number 37. You will presently be dead and are not yet simple, untroubled, void of suspicion that anything from outside can hurt you, not yet propitious to all men, nor counting wisdom to consist only in just action. Number 38. Look into their governing principles, even the wise among them, what petty things they avoid and what pursue. Number 39. Your evil does not consist in another's governing principle, nor indeed in any change and alteration of your environment. Where then? Where the part of you which judges about evil is. Let it not frame the judgment, and all is well. Even if what is nearest to it, your body, is cut, cauterized, suppurates, mortifies, still let the part which judges about these things be at rest. That is, let it decide that nothing is good or evil which can happen indifferently to the evil man and the good. For what happens indifferently to one whose life is contrary to nature, and to one whose life is according to nature, this is neither according to nor contrary to nature. Number 40. Constantly think of the universe as one living creature, embracing one being and one soul. How all is absorbed into the one consciousness of this living creature. How it compasses all things with a single purpose, and how all things work together to cause all that comes to pass, and their wonderful web and texture. Number 41. You are a spirit bearing the weight of a dead body, as Epictetus used to say. Number 42. For what comes to pass in the course of change, nothing is evil, as nothing is good for what exists in consequence of change. Number 43. There is a kind of river of things passing into being, and time is a violent torrent. For no sooner is each seen than it has been carried away, and another is being carried by, and that too will be carried away. Number 44. All that comes to pass is as familiar and well known as the rose in spring and the grape in summer. Of like fashion are sickness, death, calumny, intrigue, and all that gladdens or saddens the foolish. Number 45. What follows is always organically related to what went before, for it is not like a simple enumeration of units separately determined by necessity, but a rational combination. And as being is arranged in a mutual coordination, so the phenomena of becoming display no bare succession, but a wonderful organic interrelation. Number 46. Always remember what Heraclitus said. The death of earth is the birth of water. The death of water is the birth of atmosphere. The death of atmosphere is fire, and conversely. Remember, too, his image of the man who forgets the way he is going, and they are at variance with that with which they most continuously have converse, reason which governs the universe, and the things they meet with every day appear alien to them, and again, we must not act and speak like men who sleep. For in sleep we suppose that we act and speak. And we must not be like children with parents, that is, accept things simply as we have received them. Number 47. Just as if one of the gods told you, tomorrow you will be dead, or in any case the day after tomorrow, you would no longer be making that day after important any more than tomorrow, unless you are an arrant coward, for the difference is a mere trifle. In the same way, count it no great matter to live to a year that is an infinite distance off, rather than till tomorrow. Number 48. Think continually how many physicians have died, after often knitting their foreheads over their patients. How many astrologers, after prophesying other men's deaths, as though to die were a great matter. How many philosophers, after endless debate on death or survival, after death. How many paladins after slaying their thousands? How many tyrants after using their power over men's lives with monstrous arrogance, as if themselves immortal? How many entire cities have, if I may use the term, died? Hellas, Pompeii, Herculaneum, and others innumerable. Run over too, the many also you know of, one after another. One followed this man's funeral, and then was himself laid on the bier. Another followed him, and all in a little while. This is the whole matter. See always how ephemeral and cheap are the things of man. Yesterday, a spot of albumen, tomorrow, ashes, or a mummy. Therefore make your passage through this span of time, in obedience to nature, and gladly lay down your life, as an olive, when ripe, might fall, blessing her who bare it, and grateful to the tree which gave it life. Number 49. Be like the headland on which the waves continually break, but it stands firm, and about it the boiling waters sink to sleep. Unlucky am I, because this has befallen me. Nay, rather, lucky am I, because though this befell me, I continue free from sorrow, neither crushed by the present, nor fearing what is to come. For such an event might have befallen any man, but not every man would have continued in it, free from sorrow. On what grounds, then, is this ill fortune? More than that, good fortune. Do you, speaking generally, call what is not a deviation from man's nature a man's ill fortune? And do you suppose that what is not opposed to his natural will is a deviation from his nature? Very well. You have been taught what that will is. Can what has befallen you prevent your being just, high-minded, temperate, prudent, free from rash judgments, trustful, self-reverent, free, and whatever else abides presence with him, enables a man's nature to secure what is really his? Finally, in every event which leads you to sorrow, remember to use this principle, that this is not a misfortune, but that to bear it like a brave man is good fortune. Number 50. An unscientific, but nonetheless a helpful support to disdain of death, is to review those who have clung tenaciously to life. What more did they gain than those who died prematurely? In every case they are laid in some grave at last. Cadicianus, Fabius, Julianus, Lepidus, and any others like them, who after carrying many to the grave were themselves carried out. To speak generally, the difference is a small one, and this difference long drawn out through what great toils, and with what sorts of men, and in how weak a body do not count it then as a thing. For see the gulf of time behind, and another infinite time in front. In this what difference is there between a 3 days old infant and a Nestor of 3 generations? Number 51. Run always the short road, and nature's road is short. Therefore say and do everything in the soundest way, because a purpose like this delivers a man from troubles and warfare, from every care and superfluity.